Hey, loves, I have two special invites for you as throughout the month of July, the Magdalene month, we can connect with these frequency in this exalted states. So this is for you if you need a rest or a deep, deep reset on deep level soul alignment, a moment to connect body and soul as that vessel of the divine and remember who you truly are. I have Magdalene Starfire healing sessions at 22% off only in the month of July. So 22, the frequency of the Magdalene. So it's still on the entire month of July. A couple of sessions are still left. So book yours. These are deep cellular soul level sessions working with the Magdalene codings, the priestess codes, and the parts of you that are really ready to be seen, to be remembered and restored. There's nothing to heal. It's all already there. And we just like want to access these deeper layers. So book your session now. The link is below. 22% discount only valid this month. And you need a code that you'll find below. And if you know that you are here to be a healer, a guide, a way shower for others, to walk with the Magdalene codes and awaken the same in others, basically, you are a Magdalene. I have this brand new Magdalene Reiki certification level 1, and we begin in less than a week, July 22nd, on her feast day. So, this is your personal invite to step in. This is more than a training. This is a sacred initiation into the path of the rose. And we'll walk through ancient temple wisdom, working with healing symbols, with profound alchemy and divine feminine energy, learning and embodying how to channel these Magdalene codings for yourself and others as that divine force to awaken Gaia and humanity at this pivotal moment in time. Now, if you felt the stirring of something really, really ancient and that knowing inside, now is the time. Doors are open and the journey starts July 22nd. You'll find the link below, so sign up now. Welcome back, Sacred Travel friends. Guess what? This is a long-awaited episode by many, including myself, as you'll get to discover the sky as a universal mapping and your zodiac as leading guides for where to have expanding moments, where to find love, to dream big, and why some places feel more challenging than others. Welcome with me, my guest, Kylene Alvich. Kylene, I'm so stoked you are with us today.
I'm so excited to be here. This is so fun. I love talking about this.
Yeah. So that's great. You're in the right place. So you are an astrocartographer, also an intuitive healer, and the founder of Astral Compass Rose. I love that name, by the way. Super, super beautiful and deep. What's your personal story that made you arrive to where you are now and in that place of like guiding others?
Oh, okay. So there's a lot of facets to it, but the Cliff Notes version, I had been doing a lot of other regular healing work previous to that, but not in the spiritual realm. Like I was a veterinary technician, I worked in pharmaceutical, like it was very much of the mind and not of other things. And then a lot of things happened in my life that I was like, I really need to heal myself first. And so I started going into Reiki. And once that started to happen to me, everything happened at once. It was kind of like I went into some of my Reiki training. I started, when that happened, I started channeling. A friend of mine who was an astrologer did a reading for me and was like, "Why aren't you doing things with travel?" And at the same time, all of a sudden I found this course online that was about astrocartography, and I just devoured it. And so quickly, I was like, "This is amazing." And when she had mentioned travel, I thought she meant that I should be a travel agent. So I did that first. And I was like, "Oh, that sounds fun." But it wasn't really fulfilling for me. It didn't have like the spiritual side to it that I really wanted. I was like, I need more. What is that? And so when astrocartography came into my life, and and then quickly after that, along with the channeling that I was doing, and I ended up going to one of the places that are is very activating for me. And I was like, "Oh, okay, I understand how this all comes together now because I've experienced it myself." Yeah, it just kind of it has grown from there, and yeah, just kind of developed into its own thing. I felt like I was just along for the ride and it was creating itself.
I can relate to so many things. Thank you for sharing that. And for me, it's been the same, like the channeling and the Reiki, how they go together and like open new channels and pathways within. It's so incredible. So you mentioned you've been to like one of the places that opened or expanded you. Do you want to share where that place was?
Sure. I went on a retreat to Tulum in Mexico,
Mm.
and I thought it was just gonna be, like, this really great women's retreat, and we were gonna go swimming in cenotes and feel the energy from, like, that those are so powerful with how they were created with the meteor that hit, and so they really believe, the Mayans, that it's holding celestial light codes when you're swimming in them, and then you're in Gaia, and there's nowhere else on Earth that has this kind of formation and this kind of energy. And when I was there, I before I went, I realized, "Oh, this is going to be a Pluto line that I'm going to be going to," and no matter what, those are transformational. Like, if you visit them, you
Yes.
will transform. And
You
also,
want it or not, you will.
you will. And I wasn't sure, I'm like, "Okay, how is that gonna look?" And so, also, I had, like, a Mercury line as well in that area, and so it's like transformation, communication, what does that mean? So I'm thinking maybe I have a language barrier, maybe something will happen along physically with me. What ended up happening is I would every morning, we would have yoga, and I would just be really in communion and connection with the earth, and I felt like I
Mm.
became so grounded. And there was just one morning we did a breathwork session, and then I felt my crown open, and I was like, "Oh, this is what we're talking about." And
Wow.
it was just so much came up, and so much about, like, my body, my just wounds that I had that I didn't even know I was gonna be working on when I went there, and they just cracked wide open, and it was amazing. And I know some people in astrocartography sessions, they might say that, Pluto is people become a little bit afraid of it, and I said, It's not something scary, it's transformational, and that's a good thing."
Yeah. Yeah. So let's start in the beginning. I feel astrocartography has only become popular or more and more popular in the past recent years. So what is astrocartography actually, and how do we know like where our planets, how can we use that mapping and the planets?
So, astrocartography is also called a couple of different things: locational astrology, relocational astrology, and it is really where the planets were angularly, and I'll get into this. There's the rising, the setting, the culminating, and the anti-culminating at the moment of your birth. And so going to where these lines are can activate your natal promise, the different energies in your natal chart. So it's kind of like your natal chart and your astrocartography map, they go hand in hand. When we look at the natal chart, we're looking at the sky the moment that you're born and what that looked like from standing on Earth. When we're doing astrocartography, we're looking down at Earth as if we're outside of the universe and seeing where all of these planets are hitting along the map. Um, yeah. And depending on where they are and how they work with your own personal astrology, so that has to be taken into account. It can just kind of activate where you go different places. it kind of it depends on it. So you take your natal chart first. I always do a natal chart reading, a small one in the beginning before I do any kind of reading with the map. That has to be taken into account because someone's sun line may not be the same as another person's, depending on where it is in your chart, how it's activated, and what house it's in. And also, when we move or visit somewhere else, those houses change. And so the planets activate differently in those houses depending on where you are. And you can feel the activation.
So that's interesting. When we like speak in astrology, a lot of times like people ask for the big three, right? Like the sun sign, the rising, and then maybe the moon or Venus or something like that. How is there something like that in astrocartography as well, or what would you look at first?
So the first thing, like I said, when I start a map, as I do the whole chart. So it's not just the big three because it's it's activating everything. Like everything is aspecting each other. So they all kind of are communicating. So it's like I don't really feel like there's like maybe a shortened version of how to look at it. One of the things that I tell people, one of the first questions I ask when I'm doing a reading is there a place that you feel drawn to?
Hmm.
And like, I've always wanted to go to Greece or something like that, and they have no idea why. And they love the culture, they love the food. I don't understand. Usually, when we look at the map, they have a natal line that's going through that area that either speaks of past life energy. So usually, like if somebody wants like, I just really want to know this thing, that's usually what it is. I have a lot of people that are like, I'm really interested in like past or parallel lives and where that energy is showing in my map. So maybe that's more of like a just give me this answer type of a deal, type of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So, one thing that you told me up front was that astrocartography is actually a tool for spiritual remembrance, like as much as it is also or can be used as a travel advice, but it's more than that. So I would love for you to speak a little bit more into that.
Yeah. So there are different lines that speak into a lot of your past life energy or spiritual energy. So when we're talking about past life energy, there's the nodes, a lot of the time the Pluto line. So I didn't mention the angles. So there's the four angles. There's the ascendant, the descendant, the midheaven, and the IC. It's Latin and I can't pronounce it. But those four. So when I open up the map, there's four lines for every planet, and that can get a little bit confusing, but that's because of the
Ah,
angles.
okay.
And so your ascendant is your rising energy, it's your identity. Your descendant is how you relate, your relationships. Your midheaven is your career, and the IC is home and ancestors and ancestral energy. So, like the moon, which is all about mother, home, nurturing, in IC, that energy on your map may or may not, depending on your own chart, be indicative of spiritual energy, maybe ancestral, maybe past life energy. And it depends on where your planets are because a lot of people look at Neptune, it's very mystic, it's mysticism. That placement somewhere on the map could be somewhere that when you travel there, you tap into like your clair senses, your psychic, your channeling, your intuition. There's also I personally started I was channeled kind of some information. I'll look at the 4 royal stars of Persia, which I realize a lot of people don't know a whole lot about, but they are fixed stars that were Persian astrologers like 500 BC were studying, and they are believed to be like guardians of the heavens, and they have a lot of mystical attributes to them. And protecting the 4 cardinal directions. And later on, they were associated with the 4 main archangels, Raphael, Michael, Gabriel, and Uriel. And a lot of that energy, when I'm doing a reading, I also look at those 4 stars as well for people who are very into like their spiritual energy, the mystical side of what's going on, because a lot of these can be activated in someone's chart if they are near a major planetary body in their natal chart. So that energy will activate for them, especially like with Gabriel. It's very much about like visionary communication, mysticism. And when that star is activated in a chart near another major planet, it activates those gifts for someone. And then we look at where the house is that's activating, and that could be an area of their life where they're getting a lot of that energy. And then we go and like we look at the map to see where those lines are and go, okay, so if I want to travel to these places or I want to really tap into that energy, you could go there, but you could also, like, I want to mention, you don't have to go to these places. You can kind of tap into that energy. Like, if you're not able to travel, but you've got this beautiful Venus line going through Egypt, and you're like, Venus is about beauty and all of that kind of energy, and you really want to tap into it, like study the culture, have like an Egyptian a night in your home and wear the clothing and play music and that kind of thing to help to create a ritual around it and kind of activate that energy in yourself, even if you can't be there.
Yeah, yeah, totally. That's also something that I like to repeat all the time because I find it's so important. I Let's go a little bit deeper with the 4 stars. Would you be able to name them for our audience and maybe also like in which constellation they are because I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with that.
Sure. So, and I'm hoping like some of these names I'm like not butchering the name, but Aldebaran is the Watcher of the East, and that's Archangel Michael. And that is always in the sign of Gemini. And it's very much about courage and leadership and that kind of energy. Then Regulus is the Watcher of the North, and that is Raphael, and that's always in the sign of Leo. And so that's all about like royalty, but also healing and just being very much in heart leadership. And Terry's is one of them as well, and that's in the West, the Watcher of the West, and that's Archangel Uriel, and he is all about like wisdom, and it's in Sagittarius, so it's very much like warrior spirit, transformative type of energy. And then Famalhut is in the South, the Watcher of the South, and that's always in Pisces, and that is Archangel Gabriel's energy. And it's very much the water, the mystic, the creative mind, the communication.
Everything in nature instinctively strives towards balance. It's not a static state, but a dynamic dance. An ever-flowing harmony between the Earth's energies and our inner essence. The dance between nature and humanity. Chaos and order. The body and the soul. The steady rhythm of a beating heart. Lavilite's nutritional supplements are crafted with this philosophy, blending the gifts of nature with human innovations to support your inner balance. Because balance was born with you. Lavilites, quintessence of life.
Interesting. I always thought that Antares was the heart of the Scorpion.
Hmm.
So not
Yes.
Sagittarius, that it's Scorpio.
So this is what the astrologers in Persia put this label on. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
so,
super.
like,
No,
coming from their perspective.
okay. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. This is
Oh,
what they had labeled them as. So, and this was, like, ancient, what's the name for it? It's like Achaemenid, sorry, I can't even empire, it's like 500 BC. So it's however they were labeling it. I don't know, like, at what point, maybe another type of astrology, maybe in another culture, it was different for them, and so that's what they labeled it
yeah,
as.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't.
Okay. And then in what way do you work with them when you look at a chart of someone?
So I usually ask people if they want to hear about it, because some people are like, I just want to know my stars. I'm not really interested in archangel energy. I don't really, that's not my thing. I haven't really had anybody say that. So I've kind of just gone ahead and done it as an addition to after we go over the natal chart, because a lot of mostly people who are coming for a reading are spiritually minded, they're Reiki masters, they're astrologers themselves, or they're interested in that kind of energy. And so we go in and talk about those energies that I spoke of for each one and if they're activated in their chart, and then go into the map and see, okay, so this line is, sometimes they're not activated, but by accessing wherever it is on the map that they are, you can activate them for yourselves. So it's kind of like I want to be more in the energy of courage, and I maybe you've got a work project that you're like, I really want to power through this and be able to just travel, and maybe it's a business travel and you really want to work on a book you're writing or something like that. And you would go to that energy of whatever that star is for you, wherever it is, and get your work done. That kind of,
Mm.
and then that also is in regular astrocartography as well. I just kind of blend these in. I throw in a couple of different things. Like I'll put in psyche sometimes for people and see what that comes up as. So there's a lot that you can do, and there's a lot of different stars and points that you can look at that are associated with the astrocartography map. There's also places on the map where lines can converge and they cross on the map and they create what's called a parent line that wraps around the whole globe. It's kind of like this parallel line of energy. And those are really important. I should mention, like, the astrocartography planetary lines themselves, you can feel the energy, they say up to like 500 miles away from where that specific line is. You don't have to be on top of it. The closer you get, the more powerful it's going to feel and the more energy you're going to feel off of it. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it might be a little bit more challenging. But when you get to those parent lines, their area of activation is only 75 miles in comparison. So they're very
Mm.
small, and but they are very powerful, because some of those energies, when they combine, may be very challenging, or they may be very wonderful and you want to be near them. And that's a part that is, I think it's a really important a part of astrocartography. It's another layer to go through. I always go like, that's after the planetary lines. We look at that because all the lines together in a specific area, they create a story about that energy that's specific to you and how it's going to feel for you. So, like, somebody goes somewhere and they're like, oh my gosh, I really did not like the energy in that place. And I don't know why. I was going on this nice vacation and it just felt so wrong. Sometimes you go back in the map and you look and you're like, okay, well, you got like these lines, and it might be like a Mars, Saturn, something going on there, and it just feels yucky for them. Or it might be wonderful. Like, you just feel really good. And yeah, I usually you feel the energy before we even look at the map. That sometimes
Mm.
happens too.
Yeah, totally. That's another thing that I find interesting because I feel with, like, let's say astrology as a tool in general, and then with these specifics, we are moving away from the type of like, oh, I'm using it to explain something, to really make it a sacred, yeah, kind of like tool of remembrance where we pair it with our body's intuition and like come home to this. How can I intentionally work with it versus like, oh, it's a destiny that I can't escape in a way.
Yeah, I I really believe that so there's no bad places. There's no bad places on the globe. There's challenges. Everything is a challenge. So they're like, what's the best place for me to move to? Well, I'm like, well, what is it that you're looking for? Are you
Mm,
looking for more community, more better business, better, what is it? What area of your life? Because there's always going to be an area of your life that's going to have a challenge. It's not perfect all the time and everything. So it's what places do you want to grow in and what things are you're like, I really don't want to deal with having problems in my family. So let's not go somewhere that's going to cause issues because again, we're looking for those areas of activation in the natal chart combined with the map. I also believe that we carry light codes, of course, in us. And when we are going and traveling to these places in our astrocartography map that maybe have nodes of like past and life energy or even the Pluto transformative areas, not only is it transformative for us, it's transformative for the earth. And we're activating the crystalline grid when we're going to these places on our astrocartography map that show, like, yes, you're having a challenge here, but you're also pouring in your energy and reactivating wherever it is that you're in. So I think
mm,
it goes both ways.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about the planetary lines that would be more, let's say, more considered to be the challenging ones versus the ones where you potentially feel more expansion. What would we look at?
So planetary lines, first, when we're doing the chart, this is usually in whole sign because it just makes everything a lot neater. And that's how you're able to read astrocartography is in whole sign. So there is, it's Hellenistic astrology. And so there's a benefic and a malefic, depending on if you have a day or a night chart. And so for some people, that malefic is either Saturn or Mars generally. And but in the grand scheme of things, it's usually one of those two anyway. So there's, Saturn will slow things down. It's the timekeeper. You go there, things are like you're being forced to take a slower pace. Maybe you miss your Uber or you miss your flight or like something like that happens and you're forced to stay in the space of where you are. Or you might go somewhere where your Mars line is activated and maybe you're feeling the energy like you're going into a store and there's people who are very agitated and you've got like a lot of angry people around you or something's happening to that effect that can happen. But there's also good for both of these. So like Mars can also be a very big driver and push you into doing your work and push you into doing things that might be outside of your comfort zone like going skydiving or something like that. And then Saturn might be more of energy of yes, slowing down, but then you appreciate where you are and what's going on around you because you're able to take it in. So those might be more difficult. Pluto, of course, I mentioned, that's very transformative energy. You're not really sure how it's going to look when you go there, but it's going to possibly bring up some things that you weren't expecting to work on or think about. Chiron can do that as well. Chiron is also one in the map that we look at as the wounded healer. And so wounds can come up to the surface, and you're kind of made to look at them while you're there. Maybe you might be in some kind of situation where, like, you're a lot of retreats. A lot of people specifically look for going on a retreat in these areas so that they
Oh,
can,
wow.
it's causing them to have a bigger transformation. And yeah, those are the big ones, I want to say. Those are the big main ones that a lot of people have a lot of activations or challenges around. But like a Venus line can be challenging depending on how it looks in your chart. Or I mean, it's all relative to the person. So it's very hard to just be like, these lines are bad, these lines are good, because it's all dependent on you personally.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And also it's depending on, what we need at the time, I feel. So sometimes it might be very supportive to be on a Saturn line while you're going through something, for example. Okay, so what would be
Exactly.
the ones on the other side, the more expansional ones?
So usually, generally, for most people, their sun line is where they feel the most themselves. They feel like
Mm.
radiant, like the sun is associated with Leo. So it's very Leo energy. It's me standing in my power and standing who I am. And you just feel good. That kind of energy is usually how people feel when they go to somewhere with the sun line. Moon is can be very emotional, but it can be very nurturing and very much coming into yourself and feeling mothered or mothering other people, or just feeling really warm and comforted. It feels sometimes can feel like home, like I mentioned. Venus is all about love, beauty, and if it's in a good placement, like, it can just feel like you're appreciating art or the beautiful surroundings, or feeling good about yourself and just feeling really good about what you look like and who you are and how you express yourself. And Jupiter is that line is a really usually a really good line to go to because it's very expansive. And if you're at like a Jupiter parent line, that's like a Jupiter Sun, Jupiter Venus, Jupiter sometimes Mercury. It's expansive and it just makes things bigger. So you're going to these locations and you're like, I just feel really good, or the lucky things happen because Jupiter is very much about luck and things happening for you that are just bringing more to you. So it's very abundant energy. Yeah, I think those are some really good ones. Neptune is it's like vacation energy because it can be very very like, we're here to just kind of chill, and it's fantasy and mystical, but sometimes you can lose yourself in it if you're not careful, because it's like, I'm way out there and having a really, really good experience. But and people who channel or people who are intuitive, it'll expand those gifts for them. Yeah.
I'm just laughing because so you did that powerful, beautiful quiz that we're also going to be sharing in the show notes. So I'll definitely, to everybody listening and watching, like, go check that out. You can do a quiz where you're most drawn to. And the three that popped up, the first three were Neptune, Jupiter, and Venus. So
Oh, that's great. I love that. Yeah, that's so awesome. That's definitely the energy. Yeah, I feel like that you give off. It's very much all three of those. Yeah.
I wasn't surprised, but I was. It's kind of like these things where you go like, oh, okay, thanks. It's a nice confirmation.
Yeah. Yeah,
So I'm
it's,
wondering. No, go ahead.
no, yeah, you can go.
So I'm wondering, if because I had a reading, like it's been really a while, but what I recall from like looking at my map is that right now in the place where I am, there is no kind of like major lines converging. And so I'm just wondering, like, would I actually want to be in a place of like, no matter whether it's a more challenging or a more expansional one? It's kind of like with, sometimes I feel with sacred sites or that are like super activating, but then when you are constantly in the energy of it, it's also like too much. So how do you see that?
Well, speaking from experience, I've lived the past 20 years directly on a Chiron node line, parent line. And that's been very challenging because it's very karmic wounds coming up over and over and over again. And after 20 years, it gets really tiring to be in that energy. So I feel like it depends, again, like what do you want to activate in yourself and what are you working on right now and what kind of energy do you want to be in? And I think that I believe myself, I like areas that don't have a lot of going not don't have a lot going on. Like the lines are kind of not there because then you're just living in your own map, your own natal map, and not the astrocartography map and adding more energy and layers on top of it, unless you have a specific, like a really good energy that you find and you actually like, you're like, I could live here. I really love what I'm
Mm.
doing here. That'd be a perfect match. But being near, it all depends on the energy that's coming off of those lines. Especially, it depends. Like for you personally, if you're living near a sacred site, you like the energy coming from the site itself is having its own energy expansion and vortex on its own, but then you also put in your own lines on your map. Depending on what those are, those could be really great energies or those could be not so great. And the balancing between the two, figuring out like where do you want to meet in the middle with that and how close do you want to be to that energy? Because sometimes we can't help it. Discover like, oh, I'm really close to this energy that I really don't wanna be near, like a Mars line, and it's causing some issues for me. Where else do you wanna go? Like, what can you do to counteract that and move to somewhere else that doesn't have that for you? I mean, it all depends on the
Mhm.
person and what their natal chart looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. There was something else that I was just thinking about, like as we come into this greater expansional state of consciousness, I feel we, of course, like there's always these personal layers that we want to explore deeper and know more about. But would astrocartography, for example, also be something that I can apply to events or kind of like, I don't know, traumatizing events? So I can use it as a grid worker, as a light worker to like travel to these places and plant certain seeds or like work with that grid to also release and kind of like amplify energies.
There is there are other forms of astrocartography that go into specifically, like, events, like, when things happen, like, when there's some kind of traumatizing event that happens in a location that can be seen on the map. I personally don't get into that layer, but there are layers of that you can get into. I really feel like, yes, there are ways that you can tap into that energy with astrocartography, but usually if there's a traumatizing event, we kind of know like, okay, this is happening there. And just by traveling to that site and or just sending energy to that site, it's going to help, and not necessarily like we really don't need astrocartography in that sense, unless it's somewhere that like you're looking for your own personal reasons and looking for like nodal areas where you may have had your own traumatizing experience. I had a reading with someone who had past life memories of traumatizing things that happened to
Hmm.
this person. And when we looked at this person's map and saw where there were groups of, it's so interesting. I see like there's groupings of lines in specific areas on the globe. And we went to those areas, and the person was like, oh my gosh, like I remember having dreams about being burned, and it was in like that kind of area where there's like a jungle atmosphere. And so I'm like, okay, well then this is a place where you have had traumatizing energy, and I'm sure other people have had traumatizing things that happened there because it was like around Machu Picchu area, that kind of
Mm.
that area of energy. I said, you can send healing to that spot for yourself and for the land in that area because that's where you've had these things. And he had confirmation of this happening. So having that confirmation, looking at the map is one way to get to that, but it's more on a personal level and maybe not on a global level, but at the same time, I believe, like, we're not the only ones that had those traumatizing events in those spots.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. While you're talking, like there's so many things like trigger, and I can see my consciousness like travel to different places and like, yeah, okay, okay, I see that. I see that playing out and connecting. So, how would you say if somebody is really interested to find out more about that? What would be a great way to start with?
To find out what more, the specific
About their
places
own,
or
yes, about their own places, about their own mapping.
about their own. Okay, well, they can schedule to have a session with me if they would like. I I specifically channel while I do my sessions and in my work, so I also kind of tap into what the messages are coming in that they need for these places and activations. So my site is the Astral Compass Rose, and you can schedule through there. I will say that there are free sites on the internet that do have astrocartography. I find that they don't get into the layers, and they look at the map, but they don't take into account your personal astrology as much, and they sometimes don't really get into the parent lines, and there's a couple of other things in there that just that you need to have more information, like your relocated chart is another thing that we look at. So, yeah, if people want to contact me, I am open to having sessions and would love to hear from people so that we can kind of work on this. And I think if more people use this as a tool to have very intentional travel, I think we could do a lot of healing of ourselves and in the grid.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, totally. Yes, we'll absolutely make sure to put your contact details in the show notes. I want to get my own reading, so I'm going to schedule that right after our session. I'm curious now, especially also with all the archangel energies. The astral compass rose. What's that?
So that came about because I do a lot of work. I do a lot of work with divine feminine. I do a lot with Mary Magdalene. That was one of the first ascended masters that came to me during my channeling sessions right after Reiki. And I've just had a lot of rose imagery, symbolism, things that have come up my entire life. And so as I was creating my site, I was like it's a compass, it's a compass rose. This is perfect. Like it just all came together. So I do have my own divine feminine membership group where we do the Rose Chalice Sanctuary. We do a lot of work in different oracular and mystical things and Mary Magdalene's teachings. So I kind of combine the two a little bit because I'm doing retreats on my own that kind of combine like the astrocartography with womb healing and the divine feminine. And so we're just kind of bringing it all together. And yeah, I think that's kind of like the short story of that.
No, it's so beautiful, how you bring like the big cosmic mapping in different layers, like even with the Rose and Venus, which is, I feel like a whole compass in itself. And then also the womb, which ultimately is our mapping, our compass in the body. So there's a lot here.
Mhm.
I just feel like a lot of serene codings of these star walking priestesses coming through. So for you personally, what's one of the lines or places that you still have on your bucket list to visit?
Well, I do have one of them that I'm going to in September. It's another Pluto line that goes right through southern France. So I will be there.
Yay! Are you going to be in Sambam?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're going to be going in that area. This is more of like we're going to be going to Rennes-le-Chateau,
Mm.
Rennes-les-Bains, and that area. So yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, you can be. Yes, 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 yes. Wow, how powerful. Well, to have that on a Pluto line.
Yeah. I think it's a Pluto and Sun, I believe, that are, like, crossing, like, almost directly over that area, so I'm so curious to see what that's gonna be like.
Wow. Okay. Woo. Amazing. I want to hear all about it.
Definitely. I'll let you know.
So the quiz that you have created, let's talk a little bit about that. What can people find out here?
So, the quiz is kind of just a little fun thing that I created, especially I wanted to have something that if anybody from the podcast wanted to do something, just kind of dipping their toe in and seeing what it's like, they can go to this quiz and it will kind of express what kind of energy are you feeling right now in this moment and how that connects to the astrocartography lines that relate to that energy because it might be that kind of energetic lines that are drawing you in at this moment that you want to go to. So, yeah,
It excited me right away, as I said. So my big were the Neptune, Jupiter, and Venus. So I really want to encourage everybody to try it out. And it's just like a fun way to start exploring what your energy and your planetary lines, where and what they might guide you to.
and I'm so curious to see where those lines are on your map.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, is there anything? I mean, obviously, we scratched the surface, but is there anything for now that you feel that you still would like to convey or share?
Well, I just feel like this is a tool that is just like you had mentioned, it's just becoming, I think, more popular. People are seeing more things like there's TikToks I see now on social media and different things about people talking about astrocartography. And I think it's something that it's coming more to the forefront now because this kind of energy is needed right now. Like, this is the kind of healing that the earth needs because as we're exploring our own astrocartography and combining the energy from the stars with the energy of the planet and finding those places that activate us, we are also activating the planet in those places, like I said. So I think right now it's coming up because it's needed for all of us to kind of look at maybe travel in this way and who knows, you might have lines that you want to work with at sacred sites, and you can kind of just get into all of that energy at the same time and see what happens for you. I think it's so fun to experiment with it. It's a way of travel that's kind of like, how can I up level myself? And to me, it's like exploring ourselves and exploring what this energy can do. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that. And I'm also having another retreat in Tulum in March of next year, where I'm going to be doing womb healing and bringing people into that energy that I was in, women. And so if it's something that interests you, that link is also on my website.
Amazing. That's going to be in March.
Yes.
Okay. And the one that you said in France, are you leading it or are you going on a retreat as a participant?
I'm going on as a participant on a private retreat.
Okay.
Yes.
Amazing. Oh, you'll love it. You'll love it. Okay. Let me just feel into if there's anything else that. Yeah, no, I feel, there is what I love about these conversations. It's these planting seedlings in a way, like these bubbles of light. And then whenever, yeah, you who are listening or watching are ready, the spark ignites, and then he was like, "Hey, let's go back. Like, let's revisit that topic and maybe explore a little deeper." And then, yeah, one thread leads to another, and your whole compass unfolds. Kylene,
Oh, I
thank
love
you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you. I could talk for hours about that, and I am definitely intrigued to know more. As I said, I had a reading once, but it's been a really long time, and I feel that's also was when also astrocartography only came up, and it was still very rigid and such you know, like you, I am also very much an intuitive, like blending all the different kinds of like tools that are in my backpack. And so a lot that we haven't even mentioned it, but I know that you do holy fire Reiki and like the Magdalene thread and the archangels. There is so much that like the layering, that's what I find is super unique. So I'm gonna book my own reading, and I hope that, yeah, we excited you too with this conversation. So please get in touch with Kylene if you want to know more about your own personal mapping and where to find love, where to dream big, where to be careful.
Thank
Yeah,
you so
thank you.
much. I love that. I can't wait to do your reading with you. It's going to be so much fun. And yes, it's layering all the different things. And I think, yeah, use all the tools in the toolbox that you have, especially when it comes to healing. Like, we're just going to use all the things. And this is one of them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I loved how you were speaking about, what I see is like we are the tuning forks when we like go to these places and like activate in reciprocity. Yay! Any final words of wisdom?
Uh, no, I think, yeah, if people want to reach out and know more, I have so many so many different things going on that this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg for me. And there's so many other ways to just travel. And like I said in the beginning, like, I started off just being a travel agent, and not that I don't love going to theme parks and having fun times with my family, but I feel like this level of travel and level of healing is just it's just everything. I love
Mm,
it so much.
yeah. Thank you for contributing to changing the scheme of traveling and making it a sacred reciprocity and a sacred communion with the earth.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, listening, and watching. Please let us know how you liked the episode. And once you did the quiz, I'd be very interested to know what your big 3 are. So put them down in the comments. And as always, try to escape the ordinary. And I'll see you next time.